Incoming right there.
Welcome back to Tactical Rifleman, you freaks of nature. Today we're going to talk about the Suunto Core. This is the Alpha Stealth model. And as a disclaimer right off the bat, I'll tell you that I did actually contact Suunto and ask them if I could have one of these watches to review. Having said that, I'm not just going to sit here and blow smoke up your butt and tell you that it's the best thing ever, blah, blah, blah. But if it wasn't, I wouldn't do the, or if it wasn't good enough for me to actually be like, yep, I'm going to take this into combat, then I would not do the review. Right? I just wouldn't do it. So off the bat, right, spoiler alert, I think this is a fantastic watch. It's got some excellent things to it, and it's got a couple things I don't like as much, and I will tell you exactly what I don't like as well. So let's get into this. Before we do, I gotta let YouTube give you a commercial. I'll be back. All right, who doesn't like watches? Who doesn't like cool tactical watches? Be honest, we all love these gizmos. So let's get into it. We're gonna geek out a little bit. We're gonna put in some B-roll, so hopefully you don't get bored with me running my suck about it. First and foremost, big numbers. I like that. Easy to see, big screen. It's like 1.95 inches across. So 2-inch screen in diameter. I like that. Easy to read, easy to see. And the light, it's got that background LED, right? So the LED I think looks really good. Obviously you all notice that essentially the whole screen is black and only the actual numbers in the print or whatever you want to call it is lit up. And so I like that. It does cause a little bit of trouble, mainly in low light conditions, you know, kind of like that dusky kind of feeling. But then again, you have a light, so you can use your light. That's that. Next, it's got three main functions, three main screens, I'll call them. Okay, I don't know what their verbiage is, but you're not here you can go look up the user manual yourself. So you're here to, for some reason, hear what I have to say about this watch. So there's three main screens, right? You got your watch screen, which will have your main information, your hour up top, and then you have like a secondary bottom screen here where it can show you your choice of different things. We'll get into that, but you see I'm kind of cycling through them now, and I think that's a very, very cool thing to be able to see those different pieces of information down at the bottom that are secondary to your big letters time. Awesome. Let's move on to the next thing. Your next screen, right? The way you move screens is this middle button, short press, okay? Middle button on the right side of the watch. The next screen here, I have it set to altimeter now. This has a built-in altimeter, really it's a barometer, let's be honest, right? It measures your air density, air pressure, really. And so people don't understand that you have to know how these tools work if you want them to work for you. Let me explain. There are three altimeter barometer settings, and that's not just this watch. That's any good watch that has these tools in it, these sensors, right? So you have an auto setting, you have a barometer setting, and you have an altimeter setting. Essentially, if I'm doing an activity, like you all know that I like skydiving, and I've gone skydiving with this watch for you guys to see, right? So if I know that I'm going skydiving and I'm going to be changing my elevation drastically and quickly, then I will put it on altimeter only. And what that does is it tells the watch that all changes in barometric pressure coming up now are not actually barometric pressure. They're only attributed to elevation, and then you get a more accurate elevation reading. Conversely, if I know that my elevation in the next little bit is not going to go up and down much, and I'm interested in seeing barometric pressure so that I can gauge what the weather might be doing soon, then I'll set it on barometer only. If I'm kind of doing normal activities, hiking, biking, that kind of thing, and I'm just using it as a general reference, then I can put it on auto. And then the watch knows to kind of, it knows what normal barometric pressure differences are. And so it kind of, in my experience so far, it does a pretty good job of figuring out whether it's a barometric thing or whether it's an elevation thing. So I will say that. Now, one last thing about the altimeter here, before we get to the fun skydiving stuff. When you do go and do something like that, right? If you just want to know the difference in your elevation, that's one thing. If you want to know your elevation difference as it relates to sea level, cool. You don't have to do much with it, right? Other than set exactly where you are. You can look up on the internet, hey, we're at such and such, and right now this says 636. I believe I had it set at like 640. So see, the barometric pressure changes a little bit, but like, 5, 6, 8 feet, not a big difference. When I go jumping out of an airplane, okay, I have to set this at 0 on the ground. Regardless of what my elevation is above sea level, I'll set it at 0. And that way it'll show the same number as my altimeter. Now, I didn't do that on the video, and I didn't do that mainly because I'm an idiot. Sorry. But what I was really testing is the accuracy of it in relation to my altimeter, which you can see I have right next to the watch when I skydive. On the camera, I know it comes off that like sometimes you can't really see the screen well, but that's really on camera. In normal lighting conditions, I can see the screen pretty well from a pretty wide angle to my face. On the camera, it didn't really come out that way. You get a lot of glare and that kind of thing. So I'm going to try to minimize that for this video, but understand that the skydiving footage you just saw, sometimes when you can't see it, that's why. On your barometer and altimeter screen, you have different options as well. You have your log that actually logs different parameters here, different altitude in this case, or barometric pressure parameters. So it'll lock those for you. I honestly don't really use that. Okay, this is your reference altitude here, because remember I'm on altimeter only. You have your temperature, and you can have it blank, right? You have your time up top, altimeter, and then your bottom row. Now when we go to compass, okay, here's my compass reading. Right now I have it set on cardinal directions. So if I turn it, right, it's giving you the actual letter designation, the cardinal direction letter, okay? Or you can have it blank, of course, or you can have the actual time there. I think that's a great little option. Cool, so that's the altimeter, barometer. As far as the altimeter, I think it's pretty damn accurate. It was probably within a few hundred feet. Here's the bottom line. Would I skydive with this as an altimeter, as the only altimeter I use for skydiving? No, I wouldn't. However, if I had to, I think this would get me to the ground fairly safely, right? If I'm off a few hundred feet, no big deal, as long as I'm giving myself a bit of a margin for error, which in skydiving you probably should do. And if you're doing something crazy where there's, disclaimer, stop, disclaimer. Please, if you're gonna go skydiving, use an actual altimeter, okay? I'm testing this to know, A, what the accuracy is for my knowledge, but B, shit happens sometimes and I like redundancy. So if I can have two altimeters side by side, I prefer that. I would not go and only use this as now my main skydiving altimeter, but it would get you to the ground pretty safely, assuming you set it correctly on the ground. Okay, so that means A, set your level to 0 on the ground where you're taking off from, regardless of what your above sea level elevation is, and B, have it set on altimeter only, not auto, not barometer. Cool. Let's move on to the third screen. The third screen here is the compass. Now, the compass to me is a crucially important tool to have in any sort of combat setting, right? It is such a great thing to be able to know your direction, your heading. Having said that, this will not be as accurate consistently as your normal lensatic compass, right? And the reason is it's electronic. Never trust electronics as much as you trust something simpler, right? That's just kind of how I prefer to look at things. Overall, I found this compass to be actually decent. You can navigate with this. I've tried it out a bunch. Where this will get you in trouble is a couple of places. One is if you're near like a giant metal thing, steel buildings, you know, inside a vehicle, sometimes it can be a little wonky, that kind of thing. Power lines, for example, right? The second thing is the compass times out. Now, after, I don't know, it's like 30 seconds or a minute or whatever, the compass times out. All you have to do, you don't have to click out of the compass or anything. You push this button on the top left and the compass comes back, right? It's not a big deal. It's a battery saving feature. Good thing. The other bad thing about this compass is that I think it loses calibration fairly frequently, but it usually tells you that you have to reset it. Now, in a combat situation, I'm not gonna wanna take the time to sit there and calibrate it, but really it takes maybe 60 seconds. Look, my point here is not to do the user manual for you, but I do wanna point this out because I looked up a couple of YouTube videos on this, which I normally don't do when I'm about to review something. The reason I did that is I wanted to see how other people understand the functions of the compass here. And I see people doing videos and they're turning it the wrong way. They're not holding it steady. They're, you know, doing all kinds of stupid shit. So here's my little trick. Go outside. First of all, if you want to calibrate the compass, step outside, put it down on a flat piece of wood or something non-metallic, right? Non-magnetic, and spin it clockwise, nice and slow. You want to spin it clockwise steadily and have it level. And you want it to take about 10 to 15 seconds per turn. It'll take you 3, 4, 5, 8 turns, somewhere in there. I've found that it's not always the same number of turns, and then it will start showing you the direction. Once it starts showing you the direction, it's good to go. And again, it'll tell you when it wants you to recalibrate. So I think that's a decent safety feature, right? As opposed to just showing something off. Last thing I will say about the compass is this. Understand your declination. What is declination? There's true north and magnetic north. On a map, true north points to your North Pole, right? But magnetic north of the Earth is offset a little bit. Here's the tricky bit, is that declination, right, and it can be east or west depending on where you are on the planet, that declination changes annually, right? Because the Earth doesn't stay totally flat as it rotates around the sun, right? It kind of wobbles a little bit. Google it. Google your location, right? I think NOAA and a couple other institutions have little calculators. It'll tell you precisely based on your town or your location what your declination is for right now. You set your declination in here. It's very simple to do, and you're good to go. So other than that, you know, I think overall the compass on this is decent. I've seen people get, you know, oh, well, it moves around, and yeah, it does move around a little bit, but you know, if you're doing land nav and you know what you're doing, not a big deal. You can get your bearing. The other thing about the compass here is you have this on the bezel, you have a rotating bezel, right? And then you have this little marker here, which is, it glows in the dark. I don't think it's tritium, but it glows in the dark. And it does a pretty good job. What that is when you're in the compass setting, let me get back into it. So when you're in the compass setting, there are two little hashes that move around the perimeter of your watch face, right? So your watch will tell you your actual degrees, right? It will tell you your actual direction here. And on the bottom, you can set it so that it either tells you the time or it tells you the cardinal direction based on a letter on the bottom, okay? Now you have these two little dials that go around. They will always point north. So what happens is, let's say I'm trying to get to somewhere over here and I don't have a landmark that tells me exactly that I can keep my eyes on, right? So my heading stays this way. I see my heading based on the number here, and what I can do is I will point these little glow-in-the-dark dials. I will keep the moving dials in between the glow-in-the-dark bits here, right? And that tells me pretty simply that I'm heading in the right direction. That works the same in a lensatic compass. That's why that's a very easy function for you to navigate with. All right, so enough about the compass. I think it does a pretty good job. Let's move on. All right, we're gonna go into the menu. So this button here in the middle on the right, I'm gonna long press it. You're gonna see that go around this whole screen, and now it's giving me a list. And with these two buttons on the top and bottom button on the right, I can go, I have the memory, right? So that middle button is like yes or enter, right? So I have my altimeter, barometer, logbook. I don't even know what that is. But anyway, I don't use the memory function on this watch anyway. This is your back button, and this button will automatically, from any screen, it'll automatically take you all the way back out to your main screen, okay? Let's go back into our menu, okay? You have your time and date functions, right? Alarm, countdown timer, your time, dual time, which is your alternate time zone, your date settings. Okay, I'm gonna go back. And then you have your sunrise. This is kind of cool. You can tell it country, and then once you tell it the country, zone, it'll give you the city, and you put in a city that's close to you in terms of distance, and it will tell you pretty accurate sunrise and sunset times. Altimeter, barometer, right? You have your reference altitude, your profile, which is what I talked about before. Profile, your profile meaning auto. Right now we see I have it on altimeter. I can have it on depth. It only goes down to 10 meters anyway. I don't think that's useful. Altimeter, barometer, and automatic. Okay, I'll bring it back to altimeter because that's what I use most often. And then your storm alarm. Your storm alarm, if it's on barometer setting, then it will tell you if there is a decrease in pressure, a dramatic decrease in pressure. That will tell you that there may be a storm coming. You can actually have alarms set for that. Okay, I don't use that, but it's a great option. On your compass here, you can set your declination. You see, based on where I am, it's 3 degrees west. You just look it up on Google. It'll tell you exactly what your declination is. I would recommend at least every 6 or so months to reset that. Your general, that's going to be your tones. I have all the tones turned off. That's part of what makes it a tactical watch, is my ability to do that. Tone guides, backlight, your backlight here. You have options for which buttons light everything up, any button or just the light button, okay? I like that. And then you have your language. It's got like 4 languages. Cool, we all speak English here. One more thing that I want to tell you guys that I don't like as much about this watch is the waterproof rating. This watch is rated to 30 meters. 30 meters is not a very deep rating as far as watches go. Now, I don't scuba dive with these watches. Matter of fact, I used to scuba dive. I don't do it anymore at all. The water rating still matters, and to me, it doesn't matter because I'm going to go that deep. The deal with the depth rating of a watch is the deeper it's rated, that means it's sealed better. If it's sealed better, that means it's sealed better from all elements. So whether it's dust, whether it's humidity, whether you are underwater for a longer period of time, just not very deep, that stuff matters. So I do prefer a deeper rating. But deeper ratings make a watch a lot more expensive, A. B, just experientially with this watch, I've not had any issues with this in water, rain, humidity, all that. I've not found any of those factors to affect this watch. So that's that. Another cool thing that I like about this watch is it's not rechargeable. A lot of new watches are rechargeable. That's a cool thing unless you're in combat, because I don't know if I'm going to be there, for a certain amount of time, right? Sometimes you do, oftentimes you don't. So if I have a watch that I have to recharge every 2 weeks, let's say, or 3 weeks, I don't really prefer that. I've never had a watch die on me for that reason. It just doesn't make me feel very comfortable inside knowing that. The battery here, first of all, it's user changeable. So what that means is You don't have to make sure everything is just perfect when you put it back together, right? You can stick a coin in here. You can stick a, the ass end of like a cartridge and open this. It takes a 2032 battery, which is the same battery that some of my weapons optics take. So it's a very common, easy battery that I carry anyway with me. And they last about a year. That's plenty of time. So I've found that the battery life on this is good. I like that I can change it myself very simply without messing with the waterproof rating. This watch is light. It's comfortable. Here's my bottom line, guys. Overall, absolutely recommend. Bang for your buck. This watch is, I believe, don't quote me on this, about $250 to $300 in most places in the United States. So it's fairly affordable. I can see it well. It gives me a lot of information that I need, but not too much information. It's pretty intuitive. Once you get used to it, it'll take you a day or two. You'll get used to how the buttons function and everything. The buttons feel good. I can use them with gloves. They don't get pressed when I don't want them to get pressed. I like this watch, guys. That's my deal. Recommend. We'll see you guys next week.
If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter so you don't miss out on anything.